one meal a day is super effective. In fact, I'd say a lot of the people that I encounter that have had immense success with their weight loss have actually been doing one meal a day. So I have a hard time discounting the efficacy of that kind of program. And one thing is I really emotionally relate, okay? Because as someone that was super overweight before, I understand that a lot of my problem and a lot of the problems that people face in general with weight loss have to do with what's happening in the brain. Sometimes I just can't control myself with eating, and I especially couldn't before. And it wasn't like I was sitting there saying, oh, I'm eating so much food and I know it. I'm almost blissfully unaware of it. But at the end of the day, we do understand that, yeah, we were eating too much. And even epigenetically, maybe it's just easier for us to store it when we overeat. But the thing is that we have to understand that with OMAD, or one meal a day, it's nice because we really are putting ourselves in a box. Like for me, as someone that I would consider myself addicted to food, especially when I was overweight, being in a box and only being able to eat one meal a day made it very simple. I would open that door for a short period of time, and then that door would close again. But there's two very big problems that I have with OMAD, and I want to be able to suggest something else that might work better long term. And I know I've talked about doing 2MAD, 2 meals a day, but this is even different from that because I know people really like the OMAD strategy. So let's break in the problems and what we can do to still do what we love, because I don't want to see you fall by the wayside because I tell you to do something different. So let's make it simple. Let's find a solution because so much is happening up here. I get it. Okay, the first issue that I have with OMAD is the calories decreasing. Okay, so we end up consuming one meal a day, and maybe we're getting enough calories, maybe we're not, but we're doing it every single day, and it's the job of our body to adapt and respond to whatever we're doing. So it naturally will attenuate the metabolism. It'll slow the metabolic rate down to accommodate the fact that you're fasting so much. This is good for other things. Caloric restriction is good in general. Like the Okinawans, any of the blue zones, you look at them, 15 to 20% caloric reduction and associated with longevity. I get that. That is good. But especially when weight management is an issue, a lot of times when people are doing OMAD, they have immense success for the first few months, and then it just kind of drops off. They continue to do OMAD because they like how they feel, but they run into the problem that they're not losing weight anymore, and that ends up just upsetting them. And then sometimes they end up reverting back, or they end up getting mad at fasting or mad at OMAD. It's a problem. Okay. So what's happening here is your body's basal metabolic rate is adjusting. And you've essentially turned fasting into just a means of caloric restriction. And when you talk about caloric restriction in that general discussion, it's very clear and very obvious that caloric restriction works, but if you do the same thing over and over again, your body's just going to adapt to it. That's my biggest concern that I have, is that you're going to adjust your metabolic rate and you're going to run into this issue. So doing it every day is a problem. Now, the only kind of contrary to that is if you are very, very certain that you are getting enough calories in that one meal. But then that raises another concern because there's some stuff that really indicates that taking in so much at one sitting could actually be quite detrimental, especially if you're also eating carbohydrates. You're trying to get all this food at one sitting. That can send your blood sugar through the roof. That can cause all kinds of issues. Now, if you're doing low carb with it, it's a different discussion, but that's a lot of saturated fat, a lot of calories, a lot of protein that you can't necessarily assimilate, all coming in at once. Okay. Not to mention, you can't really get the micronutrients in unless you really make a concerted effort. I know a lot of people that do OMAD, and I did it for a while myself, and I can tell you, I'd say less than 10% are actually mapping out the perfect meal to get adequate nutrients in. And if you're doing it every day, think about it. You're not getting micronutrients in. You're not getting everything. So I really do encourage just people to exercise a little bit of caution there. And again, I'm going to come down to the solution that I have in just a second. Also, one of the things that you can do on days that you do OMAD, just as a hot tip, I'm not always a super big fan of green drinks or red drinks and things like that. But I'm not a fan of them generally because what people will do is they'll use them in place of their fruits and vegetables. I think doing OMAD is a practical place to be able to use a good greens drink or to use a good reds drink to get antioxidants in, to get the veggies in, to get the micronutrients in. People ask, the one that I recommend is Organifi. I put a code down below. It's Thomas2022. That code will get you 20% off Organifi. Organifi has a red drink and a green drink. I like them both. I'm more of a fan of the red drink because I like the antioxidant and the vitamin profile that I get from things like berries. So only 2 grams of sugar. It's made from 100% whole food beets. Also has an adaptogenic complex in it with cordyceps and reishi mushroom, acai, pomegranate, 13 superfood. It's just awesome. Okay, and I know Drew Canoli pretty well. I've known him for like 7 years, even before I had a YouTube channel. So the guy is a good stand-up dude, and it's just a good thing to add to OMAD. This isn't the quote-unquote solution that I was talking about. I want to talk about an actual overall strategy, but for people that are doing OMAD or fasting, it is a good thing to add in on the fasting days. Again, specifically the red drink. So that code is down below, and the website is Organifi.com/Thomas2022. Okay, the other concern that I have with OMAD is the time of day that people are typically doing their OMAD. Okay, there are multiple bodies of evidence that are suggesting that when we have a large amount of calories in the evening time, we are wildly disrupting our circadian rhythms. Okay, we are changing the whole paradigm. Our body is adjusted to be having calories during our daylight hours, and most people that do OMAD are consuming their 1 meal a day in the evening time. So that means from a circadian standpoint, the body realigns everything for that 1 meal a day, sending blood sugar elevating, sending all kinds of digestive signals at the wrong time. So I have 2 suggestions that can really make life easier. If you are absolutely hell-bent on keeping OMAD your style of eating, 1 meal a day, every single day, please occasionally shift up when you do your 1 meal. Okay, I cannot convince you 100% to stop doing OMAD. If it's working for you and you love it, and you're getting enough calories in, you're getting enough nutrients in, okay, if you're one of the few that could really do that, and I don't say that sort of like, you know, sarcastically or in an asinine way, I mean it realistically. If you are someone that can, please, for the love of all things good, shift your OMAD, okay? Occasionally do 1 meal a day breakfast, occasionally do 1 meal a day lunch, occasionally do 1 meal a day dinner, or maybe even go in weeks. Like this week I'll do 1 meal a day dinner. Next week I'll do 1 meal a day lunch. Next week I'll do 1 meal a day breakfast. You will be surprised at how different you feel each time, because the food coming in at a different time of day is very, very interesting. Okay, and the cascading effects that it has based upon our circadian clock genes and how it interacts with environmental cues such as food. Very, very interesting. The thing that I suggest people do is something really funny. It's called OMADEOD. That stands for 1 meal a day, every other day. I understand liking 1 meal a day, but we need fasting to be a stressor. And if you fast every day and do OMAD every day, you have this extreme stressor that's happening every day to the point where your body just adapts to that stressor. If you at least do 1 meal a day every other day, then it allows you to still get adequate calories on a day you're not fasting, and then have aggressive reduction on the days you are fasting. That way, you're not just getting benefits from caloric restriction, because the benefits that come from fasting do largely come from AMPK phosphorylation and ultimately autophagy and ultimately just caloric restriction. People that are in a caloric deficit versus people that are fasting and in a caloric deficit have similar benefits. But where fasting becomes different is because fasting is a hormetic stressor that triggers massive adaptations. But if fasting is no longer a stressor, how do we get those adaptations? We've already adapted. If you're doing 1 meal a day, every day, how much more can you take it? Do you start doing like 1 meal every 48 hours? And then what do? 1 meal every 72 hours? I mean, come on, where do you draw the line, right? So if you want to continue to get adaptation, you have to keep pushing the envelope further and further and potentially causing damage and micronutrient deficiency. I like 1 meal a day, every other day for people that are addicted to OMAD. And I say addicted casually, not to defame or insult anybody. It's effective. It allows you to continue to do your 1 meal a day, but then on the days you are not doing 1 meal a day, eat breakfast, eat lunch, and eat a small dinner. Trust me, it is powerful. Very, very powerful, because you retain the benefit of OMAD. And I would argue you will probably be able to sustain that mentally longer. You'll probably lose weight over a longer period of time more, and you will retain your metabolic rate, which will help prevent you from regaining the weight. Okay? Trust me, it'll make a difference. Plus, you'll have a more diverse nutrient profile. coming in from different foods. And again, you can always use things like on your fasting days, like the Organifi red juice. You can use their green juice. I recommend things like that. I'm not a big supplement guy, but there is a time and a place. So I hope that this video helped explain some things and gave you a solution. Okay, 1 meal a day shuffling, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you can't quit the 1 meal a day, otherwise go to OMADEOD. See you tomorrow.